Ladies and gentlemen, to LCK 2020 Spring. I'm Atlas, joined by LS, and now we have it. We finally made it to the matchup of the night. APK versus Gen.G. APK looking to take advantage of a Gen.G just coming off a loss against DRX.
Yeah, and Gen.G, though, I mean, they're coming off the loss to DRX, but they're still such a good team. And coming into tonight's series, they're definitely going to be the favorites. Obviously, APK has been having almost a bit of a Cinderella story in round number 2, coming back in with cover in the mid lane, having sometimes hit or miss performances, but still nonetheless, the team has definitely been causing a lot of upsets. However, Gen.G looking to restabilize here and try to just turn things around after losing to DRX that we just mentioned. Probably looking to make this a quick 2-0 for themselves, but we'll see what APK can do to resist it.
Yeah, I think APK is certainly a Cinderella story, but I think that the reality has started crashing back down again. In their last couple of matches, they haven't looked quite as good as they did when they went on their bit of a spree, but the thing is, like, a team like this, yes, up against some of the lower tier teams, they can look good, but unfortunately, it just hasn't seemed to work out against the higher caliber squads that they've been up against. And falling to Griffin in their last match certainly didn't feel good for them either. And it wasn't enough to actually make us feel good about Griffin, but Griffin just 2-0'd Damwon. So who knows what's happening as desperation for a win. 8th APK wants to avoid relegation versus the first place seed in Gen.G, who wants to advance straight to the finals. I think that if they win this, then they certainly are looking at really locking down that top spot, because T1 have faltered and DRX had a pretty woeful start to round 2, and now they're only just looking like they're stabilizing. DRX has a decent run, actually, against Damwon, who have been faltering, then against Afrika, then against APK to round out their season. So Gen.G, every win here counts, because their opposition at the top of the standing don't really have too much to worry about as they move on out of their brackets. T1 as well, I mean, they're against Sandbox first, but then there's the Telecom War against a KT that hasn't looked as good as at the start of round 2, and then they're up against Afrika themselves. So we'll see whether T1 can get revenge against Afrika, or whether that Telecom War is going to put them off kilter. But right here, this one is very important for Gen.G as they sail through to that top spot, because Gen.G's next matches are against Hanwha Life and KT, and not really looking to be too much of an issue for them. As we have a look at APK's run, theirs is rough.
Theirs is an absolute nightmare, and this is one of the teams that might struggle to find a win. Obviously, I would say their favorites actually against Hanwha Life. I do think that they can beat them, so that could help APK get to 6 wins. And Griffin only has 2 matches left, so I think APK probably more so in the clear than, say, someone like Hanwha Life, who they're going up against G, then they're going up against Griffin, but Hanwha Life are already bottom of the standings. So it's eyes on Sandbox mostly to see if Sandbox can fall down below Hanwha Life and below Griffin somehow and end up in the relegation zone. So round 2 stats, team damage per minute, 1991. That was
it's a good year.
I think that's the year Valdez was born.
Oh, was it really?
I believe so.
I think that makes sense. That makes some sense.
And 1643, that one's to you, Atlas.
Yeah, that's me. I was born in 1643. You know, the dawn of the industrial age. You know, it was a really beautiful time to be alive. I actually don't know when the industrial age was. I think that was closer to the 1800s, 1900s. Never mind. So that was a little bit more like a Renaissance type style. As we have a look, Ixu, Flawless, Cover, Hybrid, and Secret are going to be your APK lineup. No changes there, of course. And we'll see whether Hybrid is going to relieve himself of his allergy to QSS, an item that has been pretty important for him to pick up, but one that he has never decided to actually buy. Cleanse as well, a summon a spell that isn't actually in his spellbook, as Hybrid against Ruler is going to be our key matchup. Damage per gold, still first for Hybrid. Gold per minute, still first for Hybrid. Damage percent, still first for Hybrid. And of course, going along those lines is damage per minute, still first for Hybrid.
Yeah, Hybrid is really just the miracle story on APK, dealing insane amounts of damage. And obviously, a lot of the team composition set him up for success, in terms of a lot of the focal point does come from the AD carry role. Cover has been taking a lot of pressure off him as well, which definitely does help here in the LCK round 2. And Ruler, I mean, he's no slouch. Even if the numbers that he has right now, a couple of 5th places and some other not super ideal numbers, he's still one of the best AD carries in the world. Even if the stats maybe on the screen here don't reflect that. So we'll see what happens in the gameplay itself. Gen.G, really quick response ban, Aphelios taken off the table as Set was banned first.
Yep,
Varus
the
now.
Varus, understandable. Yep. Blue side ban happens almost every game. So that one's going to be taken away. We'll see where APK are actually going to aim for as far as their ban phase is concerned. Trundle permaban today so far, and is going to retain that position as Gen.G takes it away on the red side. Center band here on blue for APK. And I wonder what that means for their first pick, as Kalista is a pretty easy one to take away here. And APK probably not looking to snap that one up. But we'll see. Gen.G sort of cruising towards a Kalista Taric round 2 pickups. And it depends what they ban here. The Olaf could be banned here, and they could go for something like that as it's the LeBlanc taken away. I look at B2D more as the LeBlanc player than Cover, but Cover has been putting in some games on it. And there is the first pick, Kalista. We'll see whether Gen.G pick away the Taric.
So this is already a bit interesting because you and I both were not expecting I don't think anyone was expecting the LeBlanc ban, and it's even really more peculiar if you're willing to pick Zoe. Zoe, if you're piloting it correctly, it's favored against LeBlanc and BDD, one of the best mids in the world. No
and
stranger.
One of the best Zoes as well.
And one of the best Zoes, so really no stranger to playing that side of the matchup, but wanted to ban it away, and now APK, they find themselves with the Taric, and things are already off to a bit of a confusing start. We'll see how Gen.G rounds out the remainder of the draft. APK here probably just going to lock in their jungler, I would assume. No, they're actually going to self-counterpick themselves, though.
I mean, Aurelia was picked as a counter to Zoe earlier on, but I think you're right. Now that it's you don't mitigate the magic damage with your W anymore, it is more Zoe favored. But certainly is a comfort pick for Cover, and we'll see how he's going to be able to play around that matchup. Ruler is going to lock away the Misfortune. I actually thought it'd be a really good time for the Ezreal. Zoe Ezreal has been so good for so long, but not going to be a thing. Ruler is just going to take a little bit more of that stable AoE damage, and will mean, like, the Misfortune is picked mainly as a counter to the Kalista more than anything else, because of course it's hard to hop out of the bullet time as it's rolling on top of you. As now Jungle is taking a little bit of flack here as the Elise taken away from Flawless.
And maybe they'll just ban away Sejuani as well to take away more mid-late game scaling on the side of APK. That would also be quite good. One of the things that worries me, obviously, for Gen.G's team composition right now is the Misfortune is walking into a Taric-bolstered Aurelia, as well as just a Taric team composition. So bullet time might find a bit of difficulty as we move forward. As Gen.G, now, they ban away the Gragas, which is a bit surprising. So I almost feel like this guarantees that Sejuani should come in on B4, and then we'll see what Ixu has up his sleeve this time around, as no bans have really been allocated towards him.
Yeah, he's got a free roam, and what the bans were looking like for me was to take away the opportunity to have double AD, because of course Elise and Gragas are the AP junglers of choice. As Rascal's thinking about Kled, that would be interesting. 10 seconds to go. We'll see where Gen.G actually decide to go here with this draft. It's looking like a little bit more of that boring choice as the Braum comes in. Rascal's counterpick is going to be available here. As a hybrid, what does he decide to do? We've got jungler and top laner. Most likely here for APK to lock away. We could have Ixu just heading towards an Ornn, potentially, but you were talking about the Sejuani, and that's going to be the choice here. Most likely, as first cab off the rank. Flawless could go for something more aggressive as well, like an Evelyn could come out here if he decides to. Or a Karthus, as he's decided to go full magic damage, and now where does Ixu go? This could be a time to just lock away the Alawi and say, I don't care what you're going to pick, Rascal.
And so they do need another physical damage champion up in top lane. Karthus does not want sources of magic in his team composition. He wants the opponents to have no possible way to really itemize magic resistance. That way he gets the Stork Pen boots, gets the Oblivion Orb, he deals near true damage onto everyone, and he coasts so well into the later stages of the game. And APK, this was a pivot I wasn't anticipating whatsoever, because when you think of Taric, and you think of the team compositions that he mostly is a part of, you don't think of Karthus, a champion that wants to go in, a champion that wants to die, or do these super hard-on engages, but it creates an interesting dynamic to the engage, where you can Cosmic Radiance engage, and then Karthus dies, and then it sort of morphs the terrain around the remaining team fight, and that Karthus has his Lay Waste activity, he has the Defile also going on, and Akali now coming out last for Gen.G. And this is really scary. I think Gen.G, I think that they really did lose the draft, but I think they're going to win despite losing the draft. And so I hope my predictions don't get Shrek'd here, because I think there's enough individual ability on these champions to really outshine and control the flow, especially because Akali beats Aatrox, Zoe beats Aurelia, and they're able to maintain enough pressure to where Karthus can actually be restricted.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that you know, Ruler is so damn good, and BDD can control a mid game on his Zoe. So I think you're exactly right. I think that this, despite looking pretty good draft wise, if the nameplates were off, I'd give it to APK's composition. But just based on the players and the caliber on the side, and also the comfort picks, right? I mean, Clid is the best Jarvan in the world. That's almost undisputed. BDD, one of the best Zoes. Rascal loves his Akali. And Ruler in Life on a very stable bottom lane there towards the bottom side of the map. So I think as far as like laning choices and the champions that have been locked in here for Gen.G, you look at it and you're like, I understand why they picked these champions. Whereas APK, they've put together one of these designer compositions, like you talk about. Bless you, by the way. As APK, we'll see what they can do here as we are onto the rift for game number 1 between APK and Gen.G.
Alice, I appreciate you saying bless you. However, I did mute the microphone, so now everyone just thinks that you're blessing me randomly.
Oh, I apologize. He sneezed, by the way, everyone. That's why I said bless you. If you were getting confused, that is my reasoning. As I'm having a look at solo queue at the moment, and currently over the past week, and the most recent game that Flawless played was on the Karthus. As there is a Trouble Bubble landing and a very dead secret to begin this game. That is bad news, Bears, as BDD is going to go home and have himself an extra Doran's ring if he'd like one.
Yeah. Well, he could also just pick up Darksteel. I think Darksteel is the play. Yep.
And he does. Nice work.
Bit of a
and
savant,
an extra potion that is going to be amplified by his Dark Seal. Just wonderful.
Perfect. I mean, that's just it. It's how it works. So the Dark Seal coming out for Zoe is really nice, especially if she can get some more extra assists early on. It's just a little bit of extra kick in the AP department. And a lot of the focus here is going to be centered actually around mid lane, because Zoe is going to be integral to influencing the Karthus. I also want to play a little bit of a mini game here. Flawless is doing a leash start here by the Aatrox. And he's starting on the blue. So let's see if he can complete his full clear by 3 minutes. And if he can't, without even the camera panning to him, we know that he messed up something.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eyes on that as the clock is ticking here for Flawless. He's got 1 minute in order to get through the rest of his camps. Ixu going to miss that melee creep. And we'll see whether he's going to be able to lane effectively here up against the Akali. Let's take in the Doran's ring just for a little bit more stability in this early game. And Cover struggling against BDD. And BDD going for the Electrocute as well on the Zoe. A little bit more early game combo power out of him thus far.
Yep, and you can see BDD, I mean, he's coming in here. He's looking to mess with Karthus. And a bit late on the ward. Not sure where he's going with that one. As Flawless he's taken actually quite a bit of damage, but not the end of the world. He's starting up the golems. He's got 20 seconds, Alice.
I reckon he might be able to do it. But of course golems do take some time. We'll see how he goes. You can certainly get rid of the little ones very quickly with those lay wastes, so we'll have to see. Cover with his lane state in a pretty good position, but will be pushing back pretty effectively here into B2D. We'll see whether B2D can continue to zone the Aurelia.
I think that was a 259 finish. So I am impressed.
Clean.
A lot
Absolutely
of people
love it.
Can't do that.
Do you know what his KDA was in his last match, LS?
I do not believe so.
It was
How about
20.
you inform me?
His last game on Karthus, which was the last game played in solo queue, which was, I believe, yesterday.
Okay.
No, it was 4 hours ago. Yes, 11, 1, and 9 on Karthus jungle. Flawless is feeling himself right now.
And this is the really good thing. Now, the one interesting situation here is that Karthus didn't immediately go down to the right-hand side to get the Scuttle Crab, and in doing so, Clid, this is one of the things that these mid-rangey junglers can try to do to Karthus early on, is they acknowledge that they fall behind massively in the full clear of all of the camps. They just simply can't compete with them. There are very few junglers that can keep up with Karthus in the jungle when it comes to power farming. And actually, Flawless has made a little bit of a blunder, didn't immediately go over to the Gromp, and so he's a little bit delayed. But in doing so, what they try to do is they try to get both Scuttle Crabs. They try to pincer him in that regard, and that's one of the ways that they retain XP. If Karthus, for some reason, has winning mid, winning top, and he's able to get both Scuttle Crabs, Karthus can hit 6 when the enemy jungler is still 4. And that just morphs the entire phase 2.
Well, that is not what's going to be happening here, and in fact, the Raptors are going to be stolen away here by Clid. He spotted the Karthus on his control ward that was on the blue buff, and so works out very well here as cover misses that CS, misses the next one. Bad news bears for the Aurelia, who's trying his best to farm underneath this turret, but isn't quite able to. And it looks like he doesn't want a Blade Surge around this map, as now Clid has found Flawless, who's going to have to flash immediately. B2D was in the area, and you can see vision everywhere as B2D flashes, and Flawless doesn't have his, remember. B2D grabs his second kill of the game.
Yeah, and Flawless, I don't think that he saw Jarvan shoot the control ward into the brush, so he was unaware that he was still onto vision. He was being a little bit greedy, making his way down to the golems, and so this was the variance that after he finished the golems, he doesn't go over to the right-hand side, and a lot of this, again, it's because of the mid lane dynamic. BDD has the control over the Aurelia, able to get the ward early on. Jarvan able to go for the Scuttle Crabs and keep up in relevancy that way, and then converting the mid lane pressure into an invade onto the Raptors, gets that, stifles Karthus's jungle clear, follows him through, gets the flash, and then eventually converts into a kill. Aurelia is always hugging her turret, and this is how the Zoe Aurelia matchup tends to go in most cases, and a lot of it has to do with the Sleepy Bubble trouble, because Aurelia can never engage onto Zoe because of that damn bubble.
Yeah. Sleepy trouble bubble, indeed. As I cover here in the mid lane, yeah, you always say it. One, like, I don't know, it's a roll of the dice as to whether or not you say it correctly or not, and I like it. As cover clears out this minion wave, finally has a bit of control here in this lane. You can see Seeker's Arm Guard completed for B2D as well, just to make sure that he can continue up this pressure and have the correct items here in this matchup. And we'll be able to very comfortably clear out this minion wave. Beautiful stuff, but still behind cover, actually, who still has his teleport available. It's not the end of the world for APK at this point in time, but look at the Karthus CS. He is now behind Clid, who has done what he's needed to do to put this Karthus in his place.
And sometimes this ends up happening in the LCK, where they'll pick Karthus, but their lane setups aren't super favorable for him. And what I mean by that is obviously just in terms of lane priority and how the early game can end up transpiring. And when you have stuff like this going on, we saw Flawless, he actually started with a leashed blue, but it's really good to set the pacing early on and try to split the map, because it really helps you, as Karthus, avoid situations like this where your mid laner can lose priority, your mid laner can lose out on trades early on, or your top laner can be having a rough time, and then it influences your ability to sort of go all around the world with your speedy clears and then try to do something else influencing the map.
And as you can see, now going to be going back. Yeah, he was thinking about it, as red buff has just spawned. So Flawless is still farming very quickly and has now, made up that time. But, oh no, Flawless duet not going to land, as now Paddlestar comes in. B2D doesn't have Ignite or anything like that. But now Aurelia is going to have to go home as Clid He just walks on in here and he's looking just to get rid of Flawless. He's going to do so without even giving anything over to B2D. Takes away the red buff for himself. And this is what we were talking about. This is an example of APK having a decent draft, but just getting outplayed.
And right now, Gen.G, I mean, they have a 3-0 kill advantage right now. They're up 1.7 thousand gold to 8 minutes. They have Ocean Dragon. They're going to get Mountain. And the Mountain's actually really valuable. Because none of these champions on the side of APK, except for the Karthus, tend to really build penetration. I mean, you have Aatrox who gets Black Cleaver, but aside from that, Kallista's not going to really get any value. And when you have champs that are building Seeker's Arm Guard, you have full tank Jarvan, you have the Taric as well, and even, not the Taric, the Braum as well, you're getting all of these resistances that it really does sort of add up against this APK Wombo combo engage that they end up having. It'll really come online later on. As Flawless, I have no clue. I think he's tilted. I think he's had about enough.
Well, he wanted to kill Shelly. You know, that's where he wanted to take out his frustration.
So he's taking out his wrath on Shelly?
Yeah. But Shelly won't have that. That's not what Shelly wants. She is yeah. It's not going to happen. And he's now going to take Agatha instead and move over to his wolves. And Secret finds himself a control ward, and making their own jungle as dark as possible is certainly going to be a good idea here, as the denied Krug camp is going to show you exactly how this game has been going, to be perfectly honest. Hasn't been good news. 17 CS in the lead, 15 for Ruler on the bottom side. And I think he's taking down a Rip Scuttler as well. And that just means that there's even less for the Karthus to take. As Shelly being started off by Gen.G, and I don't think that there's any way that they're going to be pushed away from this area. Ixu on vision even, as he moves back towards his lane.
They're starting up the Rift Herald. Jarvan, I mean, he has the Cinderhulk. Karthus still waiting on the Runic Echo. Even got a Dark Seal. But part of the problem is, this is also a really nice time to talk about it. When laners don't manipulate or intentionally take trades relative to their jungler. Now on Karthus, you're always playing with Requiem in your back pocket. It's sort of the ace up the sleeve that you have available. And so when you have a nice joust against your opponent, and what I'm referring to there is the damage at which your combo or your trade would come out maybe faster than your opponent's, even if you would lose the sustain trade, if your initial burst plus the Requiem coming in will end up killing them before they can obviously turn the tides on you, that's going to be favorable. But all too often, people will try to do these very safe and reserved laning phases and not utilize the Requiem whatsoever. And then all that ends up happening is you have a very stunted Karthus in the mid game. We've seen this actually many times in the LCK.
Yeah, and now you can see this control ward is going to be helpful to Ruler in life, as Secret and Flawless just playing the waiting game as our Hybrid spots this ward out. And now they're going to be pushed into the river. Good flash there with the Dazzle, but Clit is in position. Secret should be taken down here, as Fate's Call is going to be needed to keep him alive. Hybrid actually wanting to start that fight up again, but B2D has control of this river, and Cover's not able to come back in. Now drinking through his Corrupting Potion to keep himself alive and to keep him topped up on mana, but you can see he doesn't have a lot of that mana bar available. And Control Ward's still in this Dragon Pit. Clid's still in position and does have Shelly to put down whenever he would like to. But he's stalking the Karthus right now.
Clid is on the hunt. He's on the prowl. He might go over the wall, not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
They have Zoe coming, and I believe that they'll just use her R. Really nice sense right now by Flawless, but
yeah,
also
Cosmic Radiance coming down towards the bottom side as Life in trouble. There's the Requiem. That's not going to be the kill for the Karthus, unfortunately, as Hybrid's just jumping after Ruler. I think he knows that he's going to die as the Ren comes through a little bit too late and immediately punished. But Ixu has made his way forward. The Bastion was available there, but you can see B2D moves on in. Cover trying to do his best as the ulti comes out from Rascal, who backflipped over there, backflips back, as the Shuriken was on one of those minions. And Cover, I don't think he's going to be able to get here in time to save this turret as the bubble lands onto the Aurelia. This might be the end of her life, as I believe Super Soaker, unable to be used, didn't actually have that one from the hijacked abilities. I always get very confused because he used that one before, and he never actually had that item. It's just Zoe.
Well, Zoe is now getting a lot of place for herself down here in bot lane, and Gen.G are just doing a really fantastic job at punishing everything that APK is trying to do. This Karthus is for the most part, held on a leash this entire game by just the vision control and the map movement. And you can see Hybrid and Secret, they wanted to just initially crash the wave, but doing a really good job on the counter trade. The Requiem actually came out a bit late. In doing so, actually, Hybrid committed a little bit more damage to the Braum than was necessary, and you have to wonder if the trade can actually go a little bit differently. Nonetheless, Ruler does flash away, bullet times, ends up killing the Callista. I was bewildered at the Aatrox teleport in and cover roaming down to a fight that he could never end up aiding with. Eventually, Shelly ended up being spawned, and Gen.G now with the gold advantage. They have Mountain, they have Ocean as well, and they rolled Infernal, so must be nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good life that they're living right now. Is Infernal Drake in 4 minutes time. BDD doesn't look for any bubbles there, didn't actually have vision on cover, as Ixu's just playing around in the enemy jungle. They've got a control ward there in the Pixel Brush, and Flawless over here will be taking down his red buff. He still has, you know, decent farm at the moment, but Ward here is going to spot him out on the bottom side of the map. His Requiem not available just yet, and Gen.G in a very good position right now, close to 3,000 gold in the lead. Hybrid was playing very aggressively in that last trade. It's good to see from him. There's now cover in trouble. Gonna have to flash out of the Cataclysm. The Trouble Bubble very close to actually landing there, as BDD does collect his Super Soaker, as you saw. And now, Flawless in position, bottom side. Once again, I've seen this before.
And the thing is that Flawless on Karthus right now is actually behind in levels against a Jarvan, and this should just never be happening in a game, but we just saw that from the get-go he wasn't able to accomplish much. He started with the initial Scuttle Crab, and then the follow-up map movements, also getting to his Gromp and his Wolves a little bit later, having his Raptor camp stolen away, then dying inside of his red side jungle, not having any value, losing the flash, and a lot of that you can attribute to BDD in the mid lane, but there is also a lack of harmony going on between the Karthus and the laners on his team, and if you're going to end up playing it like this, you shouldn't end up picking the champion. And we sort of wonder, well, how different does the game look if the Karthus is a Sejuani? And actually probably a lot different all around in the early games. Of course, it's a different champion, which changes the early game entirely, but things probably would look a bit more favorable for APK at this point, whereas Gen.G, they seem like they're in total control of the game. 2.5 minutes until the Infernal. They're absolutely slated to get that one.
Oh yeah, 100%. As backflip used, and you can see Rascal's going to jump on back in, but Ixu going to have to blow the ultimate. Spots out cleared, moving on over here, and Flawless in position as well, but I'm not necessarily sure whether this is going to be a winning trade. Flash utilized, as now Ixu underneath the turret wants to try and take down Rascal, as there's the Requiem. Rascal, is he going to take enough damage? The answer is no, but there is at least a Dark Harvest stack coming in for Flawless.
Well, Flawless not going to be super happy with that Requiem going on cooldown. As Ruler and Life, they do manage to get the turret down in bot lane. So this misfortune is extremely big. Also, Double Blade of the Ruin King is completed now on the side of APK, but the thing is that outside of Jarvan, there's not really any tanks on the side of Gen.G, so the Aurelia not getting the most insane value from this Bork that she maybe would receive against certain other team compositions.
Yeah. I mean, Braum's going to have some health bar, but I think you're right. It's not exactly going to be a priority target in these team fights.
Luden's already complete for the Zoe. Double Seekers fully charged up by both parties, and this is kind of bad news bears.
Yeah, it's not feeling good. And Ruler is very close to getting his Infinity Edge. This misfortune, like you were talking about, very accelerated here in this game. 3,000 gold going to be the lead there. 1-0-2 actually on Ruler, just quietly smashing this game so far. As the Callista not able to have the mid game that she really wants. As we're going to have a look at the gold. Certainly a lot of it is on Hybrid, but I don't know whether it's quite enough. There's cover. Not going to take too much damage from BDD as the Paddle Star goes a little bit wide, but he can clear out waves very effectively right now. And we'll see how BDD is going to control this mid game like we talk about with the Zoes all the time. And lands another Trouble Bubble. sleepy bubble trouble, as good old LS does like to say. His flawless duet will land onto Rascal, but he goes into his shroud. He should be okay. Ixu looking for a knockup, doesn't find it. Hybrid takes half of his health bar from just a paddle star out of B2D, and that's what happens when he's this fed. 5 members of Gen.G now parading around this mid lane as Ruler will clear out this vision, but you can see APK do get rid of the minion wave and the bubble doesn't land onto them. Knockup not actually going to do anything either there from Ixu. And we're looking just to take down an Infernal Drake. Vision well and truly there from APK as the Rift Herald's going to be spawned, and we're looking to try and trade this for the mid lane outer turret. And Gen.G, they don't really want that as they're moving on over. Wall of Pain is up. They're not going to be able to get rid of the turret just yet, and the Drake is going to be Drake point now for Gen.G.
So this is going to be... Atlas, you changed it up on me. See, I wanted Drake point all the way back, but you made me do the Soul point. And now you're trying to pivot.
Yeah, I'm just, we can mix it up. You can have as many different terms for it as you like.
All right, sure. We can do that. Now when you said Drake point, though, I thought of Drake, the rapper.
Oh, yeah. Is he
and
a
now
rapper?
I started thinking about Degrassi. And Degrassi ended. So now I'm sad.
Yeah, it did. But it did have a good, 20-odd years?
Yeah,
so
it really did.
Not bad.
It was a very long lifespan. It was definitely one of the longest. And, also, it ending is so peculiar because 13 Reasons Why was having such success, and Degrassi was basically like a mini version of that.
That's true. I mean, I feel like 13 Reasons Why was a little bit different as far as what they were aiming to do with the show. I guess that only really applies to the first season. The next few seasons felt very Degrassi, but I didn't really watch them, so I didn't really think that the remainder of the seasons of 13 Reasons Why were that good. But that might just be me.
Well, I do think that in this game, Soul Point coming up in 3.5 minutes is a very, very big problem for APK. Karthus, I think he's going to complete Oblivion Orb over Sorkpen Boots, and you actually get less magic penetration. And the HP and whatnot that you end up getting by upgrading into the Oblivion Orb, it's negligible. So really a bit confusing. He's actually losing damage by upgrading that rather than just getting the boots. And also even losing a little bit of utility, which is peculiar. I mean, he does have 3 minutes to come up with 800 gold, though. We'll see if he can do it. But there's no jungle camps up. And even if there are, you would have to imagine that they would go to the laners at this point.
Well, now Rascal, you're down here with Ixu, trying to get some damage done. Lands his backflip, but Wall of Pain spots out cleared here in the mid lane. Doesn't actually matter, as a Hybrid does have the Runeon's Hurricane completed. In fact, there are some power spikes in for APK items-wise. You got 30% CDR built up for the Aatrox, certainly a feels-good moment for him. And having those 2 items on your Callista means that she is at her mid-game point that she wants to get to. I just don't know whether it's going to be enough, because you look over the side of Ruler, and he has 2 much better items completed for himself on the Misfortune. So this is going to be very, very scary. We'll see where B2D goes next with his build. I think it might be the Zhonya's just completed, because he may as well. Has the Seeker's already done, and the Fiendish Codex does complete very nicely into that item. But he could turn that into a Banshee's Veil instead if he'd like to. Just mitigate the Requiem damage that might randomly come in this game. As a Hybrid, waiting a little bit there and playing with his life in his hands a little. Overextended, but that's going to be fine.
Well, Gen.G, I mean, this has been a night of very early Souls Atlas. As Ixu is biting off a little bit more than he can shoot. Now, however, he does get the Akali ultimate out of her.
Yeah, not too bad from Ixu there. Actually playing pretty comfortably up against the Akali, but she does still have a decent advantage. Zhonya's now completed for Rascal, and also done for B2D. So just a lot of item pickups coming in here for the Gen.G carries. Even a BF sword done for Ruler. I don't know how APK is going to fight for this Infernal Drake. And if Infernal Soul goes over, oh my god. Very scary times to be an APK fan.
Yeah, and I think that this is really looking like we could have one final team fight, Soul go over Baron, and then the game ending definitely pre-30. Aurelia not even going to be able to complete the Black Cleaver, I don't think, before this team fight ends up breaking out. She only has 40 seconds. If she's recalled now with the exact amount of gold, I suppose. Yeah, she'd be able to get there, but Gen.G should be the ones that are controlling all the vision. Rascal up there in top lane as, okay, Aurelia teleported bottom. Does not actually have the Black Cleaver.
Yep, Ixu is going to be there with the flank, though, as there's the engagement. Hybrid has to flash to get on out of the way, but Cosmic Radiance is going to come in. This might be the team fight that APK were looking for, as there's the stopwatch. Rascal dives in onto the Kalista, and she's going to be taken down without a second thought. Good knock-up does come down. Low health bars here for Gen.G, but they still haven't lost a member. Very comfortable, and Flawless, he's in his own death realm and now moves to the death chamber, and that's going to be the Infernal Soul and maybe even also the Baron.
And I really like what Gen.G is doing right now. They're moving some of the members over to the Baron, and they're keeping the members that they feel are necessary to take the Infernal Dragon down in a reasonable time. Zoe now also going to go down to bot lane, so they're able to ping-pong off of everything really well right now. Life is getting a little bit low. Clid might have to smite. Karthus doesn't have Requiem, fortunately.
Yep,
Once
there's the Infernal Soul
respawning, and there's the Infernal Soul. So Gen.G with a bit of a gold lead
yeah,
at
8,
this point. And let's take a look at this one more time as this breaks out. So here's one of the questions that I'm asking. Okay, so there's the Requiem. It actually comes out so early. Doesn't make use of any Dark Harvest stacks or really anything. Karthus doesn't get into the fight until the very end. Kalista ended up being assassinated by Rascal, who was able to get in there. And it actually looked like Gen.G had botched the mechanical play to kill the Kalista from the get-go. But Rascal able to get in there, clean it up at the very end, and this Karthus is just so far behind. He's doing nothing at this point in the game. And also, I really like the itemization on the flip side out of Clid. The Frozen Heart, super valuable against the Kalista, against the Aurelia, even the Aatrox to an extent. So, just, he's not only really tanky, he's also making it so hard for APK's champions if they do try to clump up and get onto any of the Gen.G members. And this game is, I mean, it really is over, Alice.
Yeah, it's feeling that way. Absolutely. And 8,000 gold ticking on ever further for Gen.G as Clid's looking to deny all of the camps from the Karthus. And with an Infernal Soul as well, I just don't think there's any way that Gen.G are going to lose this game. They've had it 100% in their grasp for so incredibly long. And there is one kill away from a perfect game here for Gen.G also. It's pretty flawless performance, and ironically, it is not flawless that's able to put that one together. Zixu might just die here as bullet time, I believe, was utilized, but doesn't actually really do too much. Doesn't even really matter. As BDD's jumped over the wall, they ignored the Requiem entirely. As Life's going to join him. Now Flawless looking to lock down BDD. He goes golden, though. He knew his Zhonya's. Life gonna flash on out of this one also, and yeah, this is just Gen.G having a good time right now as the Cataclysm comes in, very close to surviving there for Clid, but he's taken down eventually by Flawless.
And honestly, they're just having a bit of fun at this point in time. They're gonna raise the top inhibitor as well as the middle inhibitor. They're gonna push on for the end of the game. Not, I don't think on this wave they're going to go for it, as Tart does have Cosmic Radiance. Hybrid also has the ult, so probably just going to get the top inhibitor turret back off, maybe pillage the blue side jungle. Ruler does have the option to do that, go over to the Wolf Camp drop as well as Scuttle Crab. And if we take a look at the replay, how this all transpires, the bubble, I'm not even going to try to say it right now as my brain will break, does land onto Ixu. Requiem comes out. It actually tickles everyone on the side of Gen.G, so pretty fantastic there. And BDD does get locked up. He goes golden, sends out another bubble. Doesn't get the Paddle Star on the cover, doesn't matter. Cataclysm, she dies in the Coliseum along with Jarvan. So that's the Romeo-Juliet there. As the Forbidden Book is picked up on Zoe, and I imagine that somewhere inside of it, it does say APK.
I think so. That's the Death Note, you reckon? That they've put down?
Absolutely.
I don't even know. I think maybe we've just skipped past that. Have they even really earned the position on the Death Note just yet? Because honestly, right now, APK have rolled over, and we're looking to move into our next game. This is Gen.G that I believe have been powered up after their most recent week of not really finding the victories that they're looking for, not really proving that they do own that top spot by themselves here in the LCK. DRX and T1 both able to take a bite out of Gen.G so far in round 2. And remember, this is a team that only lost one match in round 2, as Flawless has to flash to get out of the bullet time. And now the Cosmic Radiance comes in. This probably is the best possible outcome for a team fight thus far, as Life is going to go down next. BDD goes golden, but that's 1,000 gold that should be picked up here, and it's Ixu that grabs it. All right, it's not over till it's over, and APK do win themselves a team fight.
They win themselves a team fight, and they're still down almost 10,000 gold. So,
yeah.
They get a lot of gold for themselves. They're still staring down an Infernal, and that was honestly one of the sloppiest things that Gen.G could have ever possibly done. All 4 of their members are here. Rascal is cut off, and this is one of the things I was talking about earlier, where the Cosmic Radiance with their champions, it's really obnoxious. And how many times does an Aatrox get that kind of knock-up and CC utility
like
for his
triple
team?
3-man queues, like that's insane.
It was an unholy amount of damage and just control coming out from Aatrox inside of that team fight, and it really is unnatural. So Gen.G probably gonna just dial it back, not think, okay, we don't need to rush this. But Elder Dragon coming up in 40 seconds. The good news is that Clid does have a bit of an experience advantage. Maybe he'll be able to ding 15, get 2-level lead on the Smite. But if there's some sort of a Hail Mary way back into this for APK, it would be on the back of somehow an Elder Steal into an Ace, into a Baron capture, into capturing several turrets. But even then, they're still behind.
Yeah, and there's super minions that they have to deal with as well. So getting position around this Elder Drake is going to be very, very difficult for this squad. And you can see right now, it's just the Kalista trying to clear out the minions as they enter the base to make sure that they don't lose Nexus turrets as that Elder Drake does come in. As now Rascal going aggressive, Clid looking for the flag and drag, doesn't get the Cataclysm or anything like that as Ixu going to knock him up and send him on his way. This mid lane now being dealt with as the Super Creep did die to the turret. And if they can keep this mid lane under control, I think the Nexus turrets will be able to deal with a super minion wave. And that's what they're relying on at this moment, as Rascal not going to get pulled back, does backflip away from Ixu, gets back in there, bit of poke damage. As speaking of poke damage, Secret takes half of his health bar as cover, doesn't find the ultimate. There's the Cosmic Radiance as they're looking for a last-ditch effort team fight, as there's a Requiem. Flawless, actually in a decent position, but it's just not enough. And Gen.G, this is what we like to call smacking them with their wallets right now, as there is just nothing that APK can do. As Rascal dashing after Hybrid, lands the backflip. He can reactivate, does so, looks for him. Ooh. Goes golden into his Zhonya's, as it looks like Hybrid should be able to make his way out, but Rule is strutting his stuff, and that's one crit away from dead there, as they share some pixels, and Hybrid is welcome to the death chamber. And that's going to be the end of the game. Gen.G, they do it.
Yeah, they do indeed capture the victory here in game number 1. 5-19, Atlas. 5-19.
Yeah, it's this is what we like to call a steamroll. 100% steamroll. We're looking to speedrun our first day back to double best of 3s here today.
This could be the fastest ending of LCK that we've ever had.
And it would make sense, right? Because instead of having, the games definitely starting at 8 p.m., we started at 7:30 here because Griffin gave us the 2-0 against Darwin in our first series. The games were relatively longer, but yeah, you're exactly right. We could be cruising towards like a 9:30 finish or something like that. If you've got dinner plans, you may as well keep them, LS.
Well, I did eat during the break.
Uh-huh.
We can talk about that next game during a lull state, though. We haven't had one of those in a little while, actually. Yeah. As this game, I did give my MVP over to BDD for his Zoe performance. I felt like he converted, or he was a really big reason for all of the early game pressure, in addition to Clid's movements on the Jarvan and just controlling the Karthus from the get-go. And obviously, his damage and his bubbles at so many points inside of the game, setting this initial kill up onto Secret, also really good. and everything was just going right for Gen.G in this game. Clid continuing to win on his Jarvan. Was BDD converting his mid lane priority into a kill capture onto the Karthus. This was honestly bullying.
Yeah, and also I just feel like his anti-Karthus play was really, really good. Like, just illustrating how to take down a Karthus jungle. And he didn't do it from the very beginning of the game. He waited until the opportune moment and then denied the Karthus. Really read him like a book as far as what he was attempting to do. And there were like no Dark Harvest stacks. This guy was anemic on the Rift. And this was a game where, theoretically, it could have been a really good pick. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. Ever since that level 1 play went completely awry, it was not what APK wanted. They will have an opportunity to try and bounce back in game number 2, but if this game said anything, it said that Gen.G are just too good for APK.
That is what the vibe is from seeing these two teams collide here in game number 1, because APK, it's not that they had a bad draft by any means, but the cohesion with the laners and the jungler in the early stages, as well as just some of the hurdles that they would have to overcome in order to mitigate some of the early problems for the Karthus, just didn't end up happening. And they never really were able to stabilize at any point, even with this hero team fight down in bottom lane that you guys are seeing on the highlight. This didn't do anything. They were still down almost 10,000 gold and an Infernal Soul. So that's pretty much all that she wrote. But APK is going now over to red side. And on red, they might be able to find counter picks that might be able to help them. But cover is continuing to look like a 2-trick. And that is one of the worrying things, because BDD certainly does have a champion pool that can beat the two champions cover seems to have an affinity for. In fact, Zoe beats them both.
Yeah, and BDD just in general is a very, very strong player. As Ruler shares some pixels, takes down the Callista, and that was all that she wrote. Lots of damage coming out from this Zoe. Fair bit from the Karthus, to his credit, but honestly, it's not enough. And when your AD carry is doubling its opponent, when your mid lane is tripling their opponent, you know that you're in for a bad day.
Well, that was quite a stop here in game number 1. Hopefully, APK can think about what they want to do in game number 2, because even points can potentially matter at this point, and so even being able to clinch away a win is really important for them.
Oh, 100%. They absolutely need any win that they can get. Hopefully, APK can turn it around, maybe win the series, but at the moment, we're on a Gen.G trajectory, and we'll see what they can do in game number 2 after the break.